What's up guys, my name is Josh and today we're going to be talking about the Advanced GTR. Now real quick, if you haven't heard of this thing, it's because it's not technically out yet. You can join the Indiegogo, there's a link down below. Now the real quick and dirty of the Indiegogo is that they've had I think 2 other campaigns that didn't quite make it to their goal and they're trying to make it to their goal. Personally, I do support what they're doing with this. I think this is a good enough product at a good enough price point, at least the Indiegogo one. More information on what I think about that later. But between the build quality and the sound quality, I think that it is actually a fair price. So check that out if you're interested, and link like always is going to be down below. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into the review of this guy. Now like usual with all of my reviews, if you want to skip to any particular part, go ahead and skip here. Now that being said, let's go ahead and jump into build first. So this is a very lightweight yet solid planar magnetic headphone. It's honestly really nice to wear. It's got a decent amount of clamp force. Again, clamp force doesn't bug me, but it may bug some of you. The advanced alphas are actually they actually feel like a bit more clamp force. I'm not sure why. I think it has to do with the pads that they chose to use. Now, unlike an issue that I was having with the advanced alphas where the hinge was seemed like it may have been easily breakable or anything like that, these pair actually feel fairly used between the pads, and this I think is a demo unit that they were sending from reviewer to reviewer, and me included. They did send me this, but they haven't asked or otherwise tried to influence the review in any particular way. I'm not being compensated at all or anything. Pivoting hinge on both sides is actually in much better condition than it was in the advanced alphas. So again, like I said in the advanced alpha review, I don't know if that was a result of somebody just handling it too roughly or if that was actually a mechanical error. There's no way for me to know for sure. But that isn't an issue with this. It does have very similar materials, if not the same materials as the advanced alpha, with a smaller driver and a slightly different form factor. Now, quick note on the form factor. This is actually smaller than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be about the size of like a HD600 in terms of oval shape and in actual size, but it's actually quite a bit smaller, but it does fit around my ears. Now I have kind of small ears, as you can see, but it didn't seem to be a problem with me, and I had kind of room to move around. So if you have small to medium ears, this shouldn't be an issue at all. It does have dual-sided 2.5mm inputs on both sides that terminates to a 3.5mm. Now I don't know if this is going to be the final cable, because this, like I said, it's a demo, it's a concept, it's a prototype version. So I don't know how close or how different the actual final version will be, but if it's anything similar, I stand by what I say here. Now, this isn't really a sound issue as much as it is a build issue, but when you have these headphones on, if you're playing music and the music is still playing, when you pull them off, the pressure change from taking it off your head actually makes the driver kind of crunch to the side and actually stop playing music for a second. Like it can't move any further and the magnets aren't strong enough to keep it centered. Now that's not a huge deal, and I don't know enough about engineering to tell you whether or not that's a problem, but this is really the only planar that I've had do that, so I thought I'd mention it. I don't know if it's specific to this unit, and I'm not sure if it's going to cause any problems mechanically, and it shouldn't really matter in practical use because when you take these headphones off, you're stopping the music anyways, so it's not like disrupting your playing or anything like that, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Now let's go ahead and jump into the power requirements. So these are 32 ohm with a sound pressure level of 100 decibels. Now with this headphone, even though those sound relatively efficient in practice, they didn't really sound very good off of a phone. I actually wouldn't use them without some sort of amplifier, so I'm going to listen to amplifier as highly recommended, but not required, but again, highly recommended. For comparison, the advanced alpha is absolutely required. So yeah, that's pretty much how I classify that. Now let's go ahead and jump into the sound. So the treble is very well mannered, very good representation without being peaky or too bright, something that the kind of older brother, the advanced alpha, was having some issues with. More on that in the comparison video between these two. It doesn't feel thin, but it also doesn't have any sparkle or really magic to the high end that I would really look for, especially with like a planar magnetic where I'm really looking for these crystalline, kind of well etched out highs. This really just didn't have it. Although I also wouldn't necessarily consider this to be a disappointing treble performance out of a headphone. It's not as good as it could have been, I feel. Okay, mids and vocals. Now this actually gets very interesting because this has very, very smooth mid-range focus. It's definitely more oriented towards the lower mid-range and the mid-bass areas. That's really where this headphone kind of shines, I feel. When you get into deeper male vocals, they're just amazing. They sound very, very good. This is a very tight and very intimate sounding headphone without feeling to my ears and my preferences claustrophobic. Now it's not HD 650 levels of intimacy, but regarding the vocals, it is very, very intimate. The background instruments actually do have pretty good separation from the vocals, which is awesome. That's something that I really like to see here. And actually, surprisingly, regarding imaging and soundstage, and I'll get into this after bass in a second, but they're really, really good for gaming. And part of it is that separation between the very, very intimate parts and the very, very background parts. But vocals had great separation, and the instruments in the background and kind of in the spatial area around you really had great separation between them, something that I really valued seeing. And it seemed to get more intimate the closer towards that mid-range and the lower mid-range that you got. The upper mid-range and the highs kind of seem to get a little bit farther away, and then the sub-bass region tends to back a little bit further away too. But the mid-bass and the lower mid-range tend to have a really kind of clean, very intimate approach, and it's not a sound signature that I see too often, but it definitely sounded very good to my ears. Now bass. I couldn't find any frequency response graphs from people that I could have any sort of baseline for other headphones off of, like Inner Fidelity or DIY headphone or anything like that. I know they're not the best graphs, but they do have a very large collection of headphones that they've already tested, so it creates a good baseline, but I couldn't really find any for this specific headphone. That being said, to me, the bass felt neutral and smooth. It did go pretty far down, but it didn't have a lot of impact in the sub-bass regions. I definitely had more impact and more punchiness when you got to like the mid-bass area, feeding into like that lower mid-range. That area was very punchy, very intimate, very alive feeling. It does have sub-bass, totally does have sub-bass. It could have been better, but it's not disappointing. Now imaging and soundstage. This is a wide headphone, I would say, for soundstage, but it's not the widest, and it's not extremely intimate. It's kind of right in the middle range where it feels natural, nothing feels overly emphasized, but it's still also very enjoyable. But when it feels like it needs to be intimate, it can also do that intimacy, especially for like male vocals, very, very well. Female vocals tend to get a little bit out there in my experience, but male vocals, it really hits like right on the head. And the imaging is excellent, really, really good. Now, I said gaming earlier, and actually, I was very, very surprised. I personally think that the alphas are a little bit better for gaming overall, but we're talking about totally different price points, and it's not really a direct head-to-head comparison there. So overall, what is my conclusion to this? Well, I would say given the performance, and I know I've been kind of like saying that the male vocals are really, really good, and I don't want that to seem like the female vocals suck, because they absolutely don't. I'm just pointing out the really, really good parts about this headphone. For the Indiegogo price that it's going for right now, for like the early bird special or whatever, I think it's a fair price. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a steal, but I also wouldn't say they're taking advantage of you. I think that at the higher price it's going to go to after the Indiegogo, I think they need to lower it. I think that it's really a fair price given the build quality, the sound quality, at the price that it's at right now. Personally, I would love to see it stay there, because if it goes any higher, I can't really recommend it. It does have good performance, it does sound good, but you have to realize that you are competing in a very, very competitive market right now. And there are a lot of headphones in this price range already that sound very, very good. Now, luckily enough, I think this sounds different to really stand out. Not necessarily in saying that it's better than everything in the class as much as it's just different than everything in the class. And it just might be exactly what you're looking for, and that's where I can recommend it at the price that it's at, and not really much higher. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. I want to thank Advanced for sending this out for review. I do have to send this back. They have not paid, tried to influence or compensated me in any way to say anything in particular about this headphone. All thoughts and expressions are my own. There's a link to the Indiegogo down below. I definitely recommend checking that out. A link to all my recommended products, and the Patreon if you want to join, you want to support the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, guys, subscribe if you're not already. I do new videos every single day, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.